Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about learning. So let's get into it. So the question in question was posted on a video I made. How do you apply what you have read in programming books? Great video, Frederick. I sometimes get lost reading about a new topic, and this is a good reminder to put the books down sometimes and tinker more. As someone who primarily learns through books, this is very helpful. Do you agree that books published by reputable companies such as O'Reilly, Apris, No Starch Press are better sources of information than blogs in general? No, I would say no. The reason being not necessarily, it is because I usually look at these things slightly different, which is not a first for me. That's like the red thread through my entire life. Everybody thinks something, and then Frederick thinks something different. Story of my life, and this is no exception. So the reason why I think about this slightly differently is because I've been in enough of these into enough of these books and brands and so forth to sort of see something that I think is not going to come as a big surprise. So the thing, guys, about brands and reputation and so forth is that is something that has to do with marketing. Brand names usually become brands because they cater to a wide audience and a wide market. And this is, for example, why you know about very big tech channels and things like that, while channels like mine is, these unknown things you don't really know about, because I don't do marketing, I don't have millions of dollars and like all of this sort of stuff that makes you aware of the content that I make. But if you compare the value of the information that I might be giving you versus some of the branded or like very big channels, well, we can discuss, the levels and like quality and so forth. But some of you, I hope at the very least, feel like, yeah, I'm happier that I watched something that Frederick made for one or two things, then I got more value from that than from something else. And I'm pretty sure the same goes for you've seen. I mean, this is the difference in flavors, right? It's not just exclusive to me, it's the same thing for everything, right? And so that's something that becomes a bit of it's a blind spot for a lot of people, which is the same thing that happens when people talk to me about they're basically creating a situation where they want to work for Google, and I ask them, why do you want to work for Google? Because they can't really tell me, because the reason has nothing to do with their career choices or like their ambitions as a software developer to be the best of the best. It has to do with that Google is a big brand. Just as everybody who's into fashion, they can tell me as many times as they want that it's not about the brand, because then I ask them to go and buy a really cheap sweater, but they won't, because it is about the brand. And the notion that you have that this thing is valuable because somebody has put that notion in your head. Now, the way that I look at this is that the best thing has very little to do with the brand itself, because there is something very important to understand about knowledge. Knowledge is not something that scales very well for a brand company or for a publishing company or something like that. They will have a few successful novels or books or so forth and so forth, but it's very difficult to keep on just, getting those best sellers and only produce that sort of content. You have to be more diverse than that. So for you as a consumer of these books, you should not be looking at the brand. You should be looking at the quality of the content and of the information, because what you're looking for is content that is made by someone who teaches in a manner, or speaks in a manner, or writes in a manner that makes it very easy for your mind, that suits your mind, so that you actually absorb some insight. In my world, that's the only ambition you should have, regardless of if it's a brand company who made the book or some random person. And I hope that makes sense to you, because the reality is that it doesn't matter if you read a branded book if it's garbage anyway, like it's stuff that makes no sense to you, or if it's something that doesn't really suit you, or it might just be that it's just yet another book about microservices. It's not going to give you anything. And you will find that it's similar for you guys. I hope a few of those of you who are watching this, if you only watch how to make to-do applications or so forth, there's going to be a point in where you have watched so many tutorials about beginner level stuff that it's hard to gain anything from it anymore. And so there is a finite amount of, these sort of broad stroke areas that are sort of digestible to everybody, which is going to be useful to you until you start to realize that actually if you want to find something to learn from now, you're going to have to get deeper. And that becomes more tricky, because as long as it's at that high level, that's why I like to tell people there are more people learning how to be a software developer than there are software developers, because there's an entire marketplace to sell how-to stuff, because it's easy. It's easy for any random person who has a bit of entrepreneurship to create a tutorial for the basics, because the basics are simple. As I said, it scales really, really well. What doesn't scale is life experience and actual hands-on knowledge that basically is just created by people who take their entire life to learn a subject to the point where they can give you information where you're never going to see that from the average tutorial or blogger or like whatever YouTuber. They're never going to do that because they are not actually invested at that point. They're about making money, and it's easier, as I said, to make money from these big and broader topics. And so this is one of those reasons why I, for example, I don't go to tech conferences anymore, because most what I find when I go and listen to speakers is that like the arrangement and like the people who are hosting the event, they're pulling in brand names. They're not actually pulling in people who know shit. In many cases, you're pulling in public speakers or people who are very good at speaking, and most of these speakers they make a living from speaking about fluff that applies to basically everybody, or like as I like to say, any real software developer would already knows half of it, if not more, of the stuff that they are saying on stage. Sometimes you do get lucky. You have these really good people who can come in and say something that really inspires you, or you really resonates with you. But I like to say, if you're wrong, this is sort of like buying books and so forth. If you're wrong, well, then you just spent a lot of money and time sitting in a place and basically just waiting for the clock to run out, because this person is actually not giving you something that you can use. So you're not gaining knowledge. You're just listening to some person say something you know, or something that is so vague and high level that basically only someone who's truly simple-minded will go away with, oh yeah, we should definitely use gamification more in our systems. Yes, that sounds good. That's what happens. So what I argue to you is that it's more effective for you to create a steady content flow. Like that's what I do usually. So I subscribe to all the sources of information where I know that I will get a very diverse set of articles or books or information and things like that, and then I master a skill which will take you a little time to get good at, but you will start doing it at some point, and that is to learn how to spot quality topics posted by someone who has really done some learning themselves, and they have some deeper insights that you might not possess, or they have a solution to something that you have an issue with, or so forth and so forth. And the sad part is, guys, that it's like getting it's like fishing, basically. You're just going through tons and tons of articles, scrolling to see a headline or something, a topic that stands out to you. You will get a sixth sense for what's quality and what's not quality, because after a while you'll start to see that, oh, here's 1 million people now. I wonder what, the AI thing is the best thing ever. It did not even take a month for the AI scare to be converted into, here's how you get rich with ChatGPT. You can basically just swipe, like just continue with your life. It's like here is how you get a six-pack in 8 minutes or something like that. For us software developers, it's like, here's 1 million things you didn't know about something, and I go, yeah, okay, some dude has sat down and taken a look at looking through like the technical documentation to find some abstract cool thing he can talk about, but does it have any value to you? It depends on who you are, of course, and what your interests are. That's not something that is there for me. But if I see someone, say, for example, post an article about how they walked through, how they debugged and figured out, say, an issue with performance in their application or something like that, then I might be more interested, or how they approach dealing with the very common issue that I have. I still haven't found anybody who can help me figure out what is the best solution when dealing with a a highly domain-specific domain model where you can go either many permutations and everything is an optional on a shared abstraction, or you have to basically create a case for every permutation. So that's something that I still not, I can go for back and forth between a factory pattern and just using a generic object where everything is optional, because sometimes it seems to be the right way and sometimes it does not. That's something like I can, if I can probably sit here for the rest of my life and not find someone who can answer that question for me. So what I want you to take away from this is that no, I don't think so much in terms of brands when it comes to books and published material, because as I said, brand companies, big companies, and like influencers or public speakers, you have to understand the difference between what they're doing and what the people who really are worth listening to are doing. So the best speakers, the people who are sort of famous, they are usually not, they don't have shallow knowledge, they have really in-depth knowledge. And the thing is that, as I said, in my opinion, that doesn't scale, because you cannot make like a sustainable business model from learning something that is worth talking about after 20 years of your life spent coding. But that's the sort of stuff that you really want and thirst for when you've gone through all the basics and you've gotten to a point so it becomes harder and harder to find quality content. And that's why at some point you're probably just going to waste most of your money and time by going to tech conferences, because you're going to learn to a point where you might even be able to tell the person on stage a few things about the thing that they're talking about. So what I do is that I try to get into a content flow where blogs and articles can give me a hook into some insights where I know, for example, like there are books guys that are really, really useful. It's just that you have to find a way to get through all of the stuff that you already know, and that's not going to be sustainable if you just buy books over and over. It's much faster to get a news, like an RSS feed or newsletters or something like that, and learn how to spot a good title and a good description of the thing that they're discussing. So you sort of start seeing at, okay, this is just money, clickbait. Here was something that actually seemed sort of relevant, and then you dive in, skim it, and see, yeah, this actually seems relevant. Bookmark that and look to read it at a later point, or like read it immediately. It's up to you, right? But don't think in terms of, oh, this is a brand book, therefore it is good. That is usually not the case. Have a great day.